Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October EDAC meeting. Glad everyone can make it. We are going to start this evening with typical procedure. Ms. Carroll is going to take the attendance. Please make sure to unmute yourself and say good evening or hello loud enough for her to hear so she can mark you down. Ms. Carroll.
Good evening, everyone. Haytham Mahmood. Haytham Mahmood. Ken Burns.
Here.
Ken Burns.
Present.
I can't hear them.
Present.
Crystal Sison. Crystal Sison. I'm not hearing anyone. Okay. Anne Reed.
Present.
Laura Cristofanti. Laura Cristofanti. Dennis Quisenberry.
Present.
Lubna Allen.
Present.
Sean Williams. Sean Williams. Dr. Peter Denugi.
Present.
Carl Baxter.
Present.
Layla Tucker.
Present.
Dr. Christopher Blakely.
Good evening, I'm present.
And Holly Marth.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. I'd like to welcome our attending guest. Please use the sign-in sheet and the link that's in the chat box. This link will help our recording secretary maintain a list of attendees. This link is only for members of the public who are not members. Please note that you may respond yes or no on the link document for public comment if you'd like to make a comment at the end of the meeting. If comments were emailed before the meeting, then the following procedure is in place provided on the district website on the advisory board notice. The recording secretary will read the comments while being timed. The number of comments read are based on the number of comments submitted. Each comment will have a maximum of 3 minutes. The public comment section portion of the meeting will be limited to no more than 1 hour. If more than 20 comments are received, time per comment will be reduced to 2 minutes. If more than 30 comments are received, time per comment will be reduced to 1 minute. No more than 60 comments will be read, and all comments must be received 2 hours before the meeting begins and are limited to 3,000 characters. Right. Next, we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda items for this meeting?
Motion to approve.
So. Second, Sean Williams.
Is there a motion to approve? I think I'm on mute too.
I motion to approve.
All right, Ms. Tucker, thank you.
Sean Williams, second.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So carried. All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the September 14th meeting?
Sean Williams, move to approve.
Holly Marth, second.
Thank you, Ms. Marth. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, thank you. So the motion is carried. So this evening, we're going to look at an instructional models discussion. In our last EDAC meeting, we had some questions that were raised about the current instructional models. And so we have put together a panel, and we would like to welcome the teachers and administrators who have joined us this evening to discuss the instructional models during the COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Vaughn and myself met with staff to plan the agenda and made the decision to start this initial dialogue with elementary level teachers and administrators. This method will allow us as a committee to process the challenges faced at the specific instructional levels. Now, as a reminder, the instructional models that are currently being utilized by the school district include face-to-face. Students were able to return to school for face-to-face instruction 5 days a week with health and safety protocols in place. Lee Home Connect, students were paired with a teacher from their school for at-home full-time online learning. This model allows a traditional daily schedule that is more structured, and students can choose to return to a regular school at the end of the grading period or at the principal's discretion. And then Lee Virtual School. Students were enrolled in a full-time virtual school, which is run by the School District of Lee County. Students enrolled in this model may choose to return to school at the end of each semester. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce each staff member with us that's here this evening. Ms. Tamara Hunter, peer collaborative teacher at Franklin Park Elementary. Andrea Pendergrass, first grade teacher at Franklin Park Elementary. Michael West, third grade teacher at J. Colin English Elementary. Tiffany Juha, fifth grade teacher at J. Colin English. Feroza Yasin Apadu, teacher at Lee Virtual School. Alicia McCrae Davis, parent of a Lee Virtual School student. Brandy Macchia, principal at Ray V. Potteroff Elementary. Cherry Gibson, principal at Sunshine Elementary. Al Schilling, principal at Lee Virtual School. Dr. Janice Carlin, executive director of elementary schools. Shanna Fletcher, executive director of elementary schools. And Mr. Joe Williams III, principal of J. Colin English. Committee members, please hold any questions you may have until the teachers have had an opportunity for their introductions and initial feedback responses. Now for our guests and teachers, I would like to open the floor for you all to introduce yourselves, grade levels you're teaching, the instructional model you're currently using, starting with the order on the screen. Share any challenges that you faced in your current instructional model. Share any positive takeaways about current instructional model, and share any observations that you made about your current instructional model. And looks like you're first, Ms. Hunter, since you're first on the list.
First of all, what happened to think time?
What happened to what?
Think time?
Think time.
No, I'm just kidding. So I'm a district teacher leader. They call them peer collaborative teachers now. And I am still at Franklin Park Elementary. I've been there for 17 years. All of my personal children have graduated from there or have been promoted through there. And 3 of them are in college. And the last one is at Diplomat Elementary in virtual school. Well, he's at Lee Virtual School, but he attends Diplomat. And he's in 7th grade. He's gifted right out of Franklin Park. Yay, Franklin Park. So the instructional model that I'm doing right now is I am in and out of classrooms, helping teachers with behavior modification skills and instructional practices to retain and keep teachers happy and excited about what they're doing in the classroom to make a positive impact on our children's future. I'm face-to-face, of course, and some of the challenges that I'm seeing right now are that our face-to-face children, they've missed so much time out of school that it is causing even a more extensive gap. We're already 2 years below grade level for many of the children, and I know that's due to trauma and different components that they've missed along the way, but we're constantly trying to close that gap. And right now the gap has been expanded, and students that may have been retained have now been promoted. So they were already 2 years below, and now, that's even more time, and it's even more difficult for them to play catch up. So everyone has to teach a little bit lower than where they usually start. They're differentiating education, working with students. Small groups look a little differently than usual, but they are doing small group instruction. And now I know that all of our students, we have quite a bit of students that are about to come back to school. And right now, like I said, there's a huge gap, and the haves are going to get tutoring because their parents can afford it, and the have-nots will not. So that's going to even expand the gap even more. So I just feel like we have to figure out what we're going to do for all those students that have not the money to be able to close the gap, within their family or within their household based on the funding that they have available. But the positives that I take away from it is, first we came to school, my first 2 weeks of school, the first couple of days of school, I was literally shaking, and I didn't even realize that I was so nervous until we started talking. And then I was telling my principal, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm more afraid of what's happening than I thought. And after time progressed, the more we were at school, I realized we're okay. Our students are okay. We haven't had a lot of positive cases. I don't have any that I personally know of. And our children are excited. I've been excited. I didn't want to go in classrooms, but we've been in and out of classrooms, and it's worked perfectly. So I think it was a positive thing for us to come back to school, seeing that we're all okay now. And any observations that I've made about the current instruction model, I think I kind of summed up what we had going on. But it's been pretty safe on our campus, and I'm glad now that the children are back in school because they need it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hunter. Next, we're going to go to Mr. West from J. Colon English.
Good evening, Mike West, J. Colon English, 3rd grade. I teach Lee Home Connect, so 100% of my students are online, but they sit right in front of me during the day, and it's as much as humanly possible. It definitely mirrors the classroom experience. We follow the exact same schedule that every other 3rd grader does. They go to lunch at the same time, they get their recess breaks. For specials, the special teachers actually push into the Zoom session, so they still get the face-to-face specials instruction as well. I think probably the 2 biggest areas of challenge that I would break it down into is technological literacy and then the infrastructure that's in place. Thankfully, teaching 3rd grade, these children maybe aren't as technologically savvy as the stereotype would make you think. They grew up with a device in their hand, unlike, children of the 80s who didn't. They know how apps work, they can tap a screen, but they don't actually understand how computers work or how to troubleshoot issues if things aren't working right. With them being 3rd graders though, most of them are savvy enough that I can walk them through it. I can tell them, hey, go here, move it over there. Lightspeed is a program that we have that allows you to see the screen that the child is on. So you can explain to them, go find this X, go hit this refresh button. So that kind of mitigates some of that. I can see how in the lower levels that technological divide might be really prevalent. And then from an infrastructure perspective, honestly, and I've said this to Mr. Williams, I think this model actually has potential. This could be something the district could offer on a regular basis if the investment in infrastructure was there. Some of the biggest problems that I have is I cannot hear the students. A lot of times their internet connections aren't stable enough. I can see them, they can see me, I can hear them, but it sounds like they're underwater. So sometimes it's really hard to get those immediate responses, and I'm getting them much better about utilizing the chat screen. We do lots of visual responses, the tools within Zoom, the thumbs up, thumbs down, raising their hand features that are built into the platform. But I really do see that if the infrastructure and some of the equipment, was done purposely, and I understand no one planned for this. So we are totally making do with what's available. But with the investment in technology, like I said, this could be something that could be offered. Let's see here. Positive takeaways. The one thing that I really like is it's a little self-centered, but it really cuts down on distractions. It really cuts down on interruptions, because the way I have it set up is if a student raises their hand and wants to participate, I have to send a request for them to unmute. They're not allowed to mute and unmute themselves at their discretion. So it really does allow you to, kind of keep that sidebar stuff or that really off the wall stuff. The chat I have disabled so they can only send messages directly to me, unless I allow them to do otherwise. So then you really do cut off a lot of that side stuff that's going away. So we really can keep our focus on the task at hand. So that actually has been one positive that I really didn't anticipate being there. So that was pretty beneficial. And then, really the observations are, at least with the group that I have, everyone seems to be really on board. I have better attendance than I had last year with face-to-face students. My attendance is actually impeccable. A couple of kids log in maybe 2 or 3 minutes late here or there, but we live stream the news at our school and I stick it right on Zoom so they can log on. If they log on 10 minutes early, they can watch the morning announcements just like any other student, so they're aware of what's going on in the building. So like I said, overall, I think it's overwhelmingly been positive. It is a lot more work on the teacher side just because of so many of our curriculum pieces are designed for face-to-face, and then making them work or having to recreate things to use in an online component is a little more labor intensive. But overall, I feel like it's gone pretty well, actually.
All right, thank you, Mr. West. We appreciate it. All right, Ms. Juha from J. Cullen English.
Hello, I'm Tiffany Yuha.
By the way,
I do 5th grade. I actually am a split. So in the morning, I teach Lee Home Connect only. And then in the afternoon, I go and I teach face-to-face students. So how we do that is that the other teacher and I actually switch classrooms. And then the students, obviously, they stay logged in, but then they actually do log out and go into his class so that he can get into all of his stuff and be the host and everything. Challenges, testing is a challenge sometimes. Lightspeed helps and everything. I think some of the issues with testing is how long some students take compared to other kids. So if I have a kid that gets extra time for testing, I kind of feel like the whole class is, we kind of have to wait until that person is done. Maybe in my school, we can start talking about pulling those kids out in like their own Zoom class with the people that are there for testing for the kids that have extra time. But even like during a normal test, there's just some kids that take a lot longer. So I feel like some of our instructional time is going more for testing than it normally would when we're face-to-face, and they can pull the kids out easier. Another one, small groups can be difficult. I've made it work where I can put different classroom assignments in Google Classroom. But like if I want to reteach like my really low kids, it's hard because I'm talking. So the other kids that are doing an assignment, they'll have to actually make it where they can't hear the sound on their computer, or they'll hear me talk over them. Because with elementary, we don't really, I don't know if any grade would want to do where you do the pull-out rooms because the teacher's not in the room at the same time as some of the kids. So we don't really do that because we don't have another adult in there making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So small group can be very hard, especially if you're trying to teach to a certain group. But you learn who you can trust and who has real internet issues and who pretends they have internet issues. One of my biggest concerns with the challenge is when face-to-face kids come back, if it's going to end up being a hybrid in some rooms. Because right now it's really nice. My Lee Home Connect class is little. We have 15, which I think is great. I've heard of other teachers having up to 37 in a class. I don't know how they're handling that. It would be very difficult with that many kids. Alone, just like us looking right now, it's hard to see everyone you have to scroll through to see everybody if you're looking at a different part of the screen and everything, if there's so many people. And, in elementary school, you have to make sure they're sitting there and looking at you and, not rocking in their chair, not doing anything. Time to participate. So like Mr. West said, it can get very hard. It's a lot more intense for the teachers, a little more work, because we have to make it where they are able to interact with us. And sometimes just to unmute them and get them to type in the chat box, they're just slow at it still. Like he said, they're good at iPhones and stuff like that because it's a touch screen, but the typing and everything, they're very slow at. So participation isn't as fun sometimes, but you do get them to participate. It's just harder because it seems like you wait a lot longer for it. And discipline, like he said, can be good because you have to unmute them. But in other ways, if you have a student that continually, logs in and out, or he leaves his chair when he's not supposed to, and you talk to a parent and you don't really get any feedback from the parent, it's hard to kind of handle that in class because you're not there to be there with them. Positives, one of my favorite things is when I have a student face-to-face absent, they can come into my Zoom class. So they don't really miss school. They come into class and they get to visit my Zoom room and see what that's like, and they don't miss anything. So that's really nice. Honestly, I think it works. I think it's great. We're learning as we go. And I think Mr. West has helped me a lot, but there's a lot of good ways in Zoom that you can share your screen and you can share your doc cam and everything. So, and like with Lightspeed, like he said, you can give them, Google Classroom lets you give them feedback because you can open it up and look at it. So you're still giving feedback to the kids right away. And then Lightspeed, you can help make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. But that's pretty much, the best thing is that students that cannot come to school are there and they're actually learning. It works if you put the time in, but that's pretty much all.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Next, we have Ms. Apadu from the virtual school.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mrs. Apadu. I teach kindergarten with Lee Virtual School, which is new. I see Miss Gibson giggling over there. She's from my home school. So this is a very new experience for me. However, I have to say I truly, truly have embraced it with open arms. And I feel like it's been quite an adventure, especially the first 3 weeks. However, I feel like I've learned a lot and I've learned to love so much about it. So talking about some of the, as I go through this checklist here, I see the challenges. So I would say that the challenges, Mr. West mentioned this, and I was really impressed with the way he mentioned it. He said technological literacy. I think that is probably the largest challenge for most of our families. And even I feel like from teachers that I've received feedback from on our team, because the portals, the platforms that we use in Lee Virtual are very different than what we're used to using in the classroom. And you use a lot fewer technological resources, I guess I should say, in a brick and mortar than you would in your Lee Virtual. So everything's very different with that. Also, I would say that one of the challenges at the very beginning, however, is no longer as much of a challenge, I would say, was the curriculum. It's very unique. It's different than what we use in the schools. We don't use Go Math. We don't use, I can't even think of it right now because I haven't used it in a long time. Our language arts curriculum, Reading Street or ReadyGen, we don't use those programs. So that has been a little bit of a challenge for a lot of teachers that I am aware of because they haven't had to use that. And so they're familiarizing themselves with the curriculum. However, I can say for myself and for several of my colleagues that the curriculum is awesome because it's standard based, just like with what we're using in the schools, in the brick and mortar. So it's standard based. It's very user friendly for our families. I'm learning that, this is switching into positives now. I'm learning that the curriculum is also right there at their fingertips. They don't always have to reach out for a real, hey, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and our typical student might be doing homework, but they have all these resources right at their tips. They don't even have to search for them when they're in the lesson. It's right there for them. So they can just click on a short video or a little passage or something. There are all these tools that they can get definitions with glossaries and thesauruses where they can just get the help they need there. Another positive, and I've heard this from families as well. I've heard this from families as well, is that they love that they can reach out to, can you guys hear me? They love that they can reach out to their teacher at any time. So our hours are 8 to 8 with, we kind of make our schedule. Sometimes I work more, sometimes I work, depending on what it is, I can break it up, but 8 to 8. And I feel like my families really appreciate, and I do too, that if they're having an immediate issue and they send me a message and I can't help them in that instant, I'll send them a message and say, hey, I can help you in 20 minutes. Let's open a Zoom and I can help you navigate through that issue that you're having with, or whatever it may be. So I think that families and teachers appreciate having a little bit more one-on-one touch with their parents at any given time with lessons. So you kind of understand what your students might be struggling with or what they're having success with. Another positive is that we get to see and really get to kind of marinate on what our students are learning based on their individual work that they're turning in, because we have to look at every single thing they're doing, everything. So we see all of the things they're doing and we kind of can see, oh, well, Susie, sorry if anybody's name is Susie. Susie, it looks like you're still struggling, and I'm kindergarten, you're still struggling with your letter A formation. So let's talk about a strategy we can use. And I can build that into my live lessons every week to make sure I work more on the handwriting or the writing for the kids. So I think those are positive things about it. There's really one other super, super positive thing, and it kind of goes on to the next bullet point about sharing an observation I made, and it's something called a DBA, which I absolutely have to say I love. This is called a discussion-based assessment, and this is kind of my check with students to make sure that they've actually learned what they were supposed to be practicing throughout the week or throughout the module with their, with their learning guide, or some of them I think might be doing a little bit of independent work. But this is where we have a discussion with our student. It's one-on-one. We ask them questions that are specifically tied to what they should have been learning, and they give us their honest answers. They look back at their notes. They might make connections based on what they've learned with their real life. It really gives you huge insight to what they're learning. So I've had a great experience with it personally. It has been a challenge. There have been a lot of adjustments I've had to make as a teacher. It's like a whole new ball game for me, but I totally love it. Thanks for listening.
All right, thank you, Ms. Abadil. All right, Ms. McCray Davis from Lee Virtual School.
Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk as a parent. My son is a 5th grader at Lee Virtual Schools. I was at first a little nervous about putting him in Lee Virtual, but because of this pandemic, I felt that would be the best thing for him and with my situation, because my mom is helping my husband and I out with the kids. So Lee Virtual was the choice that I made. I am now very happy about that choice that I made. I was very pleased with the curriculum, especially how rigorous it is. It just really caught me off guard knowing that, because I'm also a teacher myself. So I started out teaching at Franklin Park, and now I'm teaching at Lehigh Acres Middle. So I was able to see 4th and 5th grade curriculum, and now I'm looking at 6th grade curriculum. So looking at what I used to teach as a 5th grade teacher and seeing what my son is learning now, I was very shocked, but it was in a good way. I was very impressed, because I feel like he's going to be ready for middle school when he comes next year. I feel like the curriculum that they have in place is really setting them up for success, not talking down on brick and mortar. I'm just really pleased with Lee Virtual. I actually do plan on keeping him there the entire school year. I really do enjoy his teacher, Mr. Casella. He's doing a great job with keeping in contact with me. The communication is perfect. Overall, I'm happy. I have no complaints. I feel like that was the best decision I could have ever made for my son, even though he will be coming back to brick and mortar for middle school, but I feel like that was the best decision I made for him. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
I'm supposed to talk as a parent.
We appreciate it. All right, Ms. Macchia from Report Off.
So I
I would say, I'm the principal here at Ravy. I would say some of the challenges, so we actually have every model going on here. We have face-to-face, we have some home connect. We have some grade levels, 5th grade is doing departmentalized, where they'll have one group that's face-to-face and one group that's home connect. And then I also have 2 classes that decided to try hybrid. Just they started as home connect and then decided that they needed some live faces in front of them. And so they have decided to go hybrid. I would say one of the challenges that we face, technology, that's been hit on, that's a huge one. And again, really deciphering between if it's real technology issues or if it's a technology excuse. The other challenge that I would say, one of the things we've been facing with our Home Connect students kind of goes on this technology piece is the attendance. I feel like sometimes some of the families feel like it's a little easier to just disconnect and log off, where in a face-to-face type model, they have to actually come in, sign them out. So we've been struggling a little bit with that from an attendance standpoint. From a positive takeaway though, I would say, first of all, the face-to-face model, we were all very surprised coming back. I think all of us were very nervous thinking that, how are we going to do centers and how are we going to walk in lines? And I think that overall the kids have been really good and the families have been very supportive of that. We all panicked, like, what do we do when the lobby's closed? So from a positive takeaway, I would say the face-to-face, the kids have been very receptive and understanding that it needs to look a little bit different. I would say the challenge, I would say the positive then of the Home Connect is that really has been a way that we can meet some of our families' needs. So we did have some families that maybe needed a little bit more support. We have a high number of monolinguals. So by putting them into a Home Connect setting, if some of them were debating between Lee Virtual and Home Connect. So we have been able to pair them up and provide them some ESOL support in breakout rooms and those kind of things. So, I would say positive takeaways. I think we're all learning a lot about planning. We're all learning a lot about really the intentionality, because I think whether you're face-to-face or Home Connect, it has to be very intentional, because we can't just hold on for just a minute as we're trying to be conscious of social distancing and some of those kind of things. But overall, I would say the students and the families have been super receptive to it. And then any observations I would say that I've made really in thinking about the instructional models is, again, they all have some positives and challenges. And interestingly, oftentimes they look the same, like attendance is an issue if it's the face-to-face or the Home Connect. I think that it comes down to that piece of, if it is a challenge, then they're just trying to figure out, it might look slightly different in the different models. But again, also in thinking, then we do have a large number right now that do plan to come back at the end of first quarter. So again, kind of trying to rethink that. We know there are going to have to be some shifts and some changes from that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Macchia. We appreciate your insight. Next, we're going to have Ms. Gibson from Sunshine Elementary.
Hi, can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, good evening, everyone. My school is very similar to Brandy's in some of the challenges and the positives and things that she named. I am the principal of Sunshine Elementary School, and I've been there for 9 years. And can you go back to the screen with the questions listed for me? I'm sorry. So just to kind of talk about some of the challenges, I would start with attendance, just like Ms. Macchia mentioned. Our kids come on for like an hour, and then sometimes we don't see them again after enrichment or after lunch. They kind of started out thinking it was similar to distance learning, and so they didn't feel that they had to be on screen all day for Home Connect. And so that was a challenge, trying to just go out and reach the parents and talk to them about, the requirements of it. We also had, and this is only with our older students, a lack of engagement and participation. They would just kind of sit there And so what we decided to do was just to kind of think beyond, okay, what would we do in the classroom for students when they didn't want to participate, when we had a lack of engagement? And so we brought forth all of our rewards and all of our ways to provide engaging activities for teachers and for students. Some of the other things that challenge us is meeting students' social and emotional needs. And I don't think I have to go into that, just ensuring that our kids kind of get what they need and make sure they're not neglected and that they're fed and they have everything that they need. We worry about that. We also worry about closing the achievement gap for students below grade level. We just want to ensure all of our students get what they need and that we are, of course, scaffolding support by providing differentiated lessons for them and instruction. But on the positives, I can say my teachers that are teaching Home Connect. What's funny is I thought the majority of my teachers would want Home Connect. I thought my teachers would be afraid to come back face to face, but it's just the opposite. Actually, everybody wanted to come back face to face. Everybody wanted to greet their kiddos. Everybody was excited to learn again. And so my Home Connect teachers, they have the challenge of learning how to use new platforms like Pear Deck and Nearpod and breakout rooms. We put our kids in breakout rooms. We have our ESC support, we have ESOL paras, and we have paraprofessionals that go into the breakout rooms with our kiddos so our kids can receive small group instruction because we have to differentiate learning for them. And the other positive thing I would say is the collaboration amongst my teams through PLC. So planning for Home Connect and planning for face-to-face is the same or similar because they're learning the same standards, but also trying to think of innovative ways to bring in the technology to face-to-face. Now, I would say that overall, that's really a positive. I have my first graders and my second graders now in Google Classrooms where we had never done that before. Only like fourth and fifth did that last year. So there's so many positives to things that we are doing at Sunshine. So like Ms. Mackey mentioned, it will be interesting to see how many kids come back. Honestly, we encouraged most of our kids to come back, particularly our students with disabilities and also our students of our English learners, English language learners, I'm saying it all wrong, my ELL students rather. We wanted all of our kiddos to come back because we felt that we were not providing them the quality of instruction online that we could face-to-face. And so through all that, I would say, we want everybody to come back because we just need to kind of hit the ground running, and we are excited to just move forward with curriculum and instruction at Sunshine.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Gibson. I'd like to introduce the best virtual school principal that I know of, Mr. Al Schilling.
Thank you, Q. I hope everything's going well for you, and I've heard good things about you out at Gateway. So my name is Al Schilling. I'm the principal of the Lee Virtual School, and I had the honor of working with Mr. Quisenberry for several years. And it actually kind of ties into one of the first challenges that we're facing. And, we kind of developed a model with the virtual school up until this year of not only having a virtual program, but having activities that students could optionally participate in. Mr. Dennis Quisenberry was the first online virtual culinary teacher in the state of Florida. And we had some great times going to some different events with culinary students and doing some cooking at events. And those were a lot of fun. So I'd say the first challenge is those kinds of relationships that we had kind of built into the culture and climate of our school for a decade. And it's just a process of adapting to that and scaling things up and hopefully coming up with some ways to bring those back. That in and of itself, just the whole growth from, being a 400 student school to being a over 5,000 student school, as well as being a K through 12 program in in a very short amount of time is it's not a challenge, it's an adventure. And we're learning a lot, pioneering a lot of things, and figuring a lot of stuff out. And none of it would be possible without the support of some great leadership and some really great dynamic pivoting by the personnel department, budget department, just them having to deal with me saying, what about these teachers? What about those teachers? And all the different things that all of you are used to having that we never really had to worry so much about having teachers dedicated just to reading or just dedicated to ELL, because those were all absorbed into a more comprehensive approach because we had such smaller numbers. So it's been a big learning curve. The positive takeaways are people like Mrs. Apadu and wonderful involved parents like Mrs. Davis. By this point of a school year, I would have Q, you probably can remember all this, have met with or had my assistant principal meet with just about every teacher on our staff. We would have had face-to-face, at least one face-to-face meeting, and looking at names down a page that measures over 200 names, my heart gets heavy because it's like I want to reach out and talk to every single one of them. So I do my best to do that in any way that I can. But the one of the positive takeaways is that even though these teachers came from all different places, it's like a whole new breath for them, and they're really stepping up and addressing the needs of a very large group of students that have all chosen to leave virtual school for a variety of reasons. Some of the observations I have in our current instructional model is really, it's kind of a sociological observation. I think that the people who are parents today, including myself, somewhere along the line, we became what I call TV remote victims. And that is we expect that anything with technology is like a TV remote. You push the button and the TV comes on, the picture's on, and the sound's on, and everything's perfect. If you don't like it, you change the channel and everything works. You never think about the cameras and the production people and the transmission of the signal and the pixels on the screen and how the TV is built. No, you don't care about that. It's just that you push that button, it's there. And I kind of feel like the public has reached an expectation of the same thing for online as well as face-to-face, as well as face-to-face instruction, that you push a button and it should be there, it should just happen and everything should work. And nobody saw this global pandemic and our own community emergency basically coming, but they still had the mindset of being that TV remote generation. And then that's a very, I'm not sure where it came from, probably started with people like me from back in the 80s. But this is where we're at, and we're every day continuing to improve and meet that challenge. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schilling. We appreciate it. Next, Mr. Williams from J. Colon English. Mr. Williams? Mr. Williams? All right, looks like he's had some technical difficulties. We're going to let him get that straight. We're going to go down to Dr. Carlin.
Yes, good evening, everybody, and it's nice to be here with you tonight. My colleague Shanna Fletcher and I are the executive directors for elementary schools and our K-8s here in the district. So just like everybody, this has been quite a surreal time. We feel very fortunate to have our health, and that's what we really focus on. A couple of positives that I like to start with right away is just a big shout out to our schools, our principals, our teachers, and others. that have done a phenomenal job implementing our safety plan. It has been a real pleasure to get out to schools to see the great work that they're doing to ensure that teachers and support staff and children are safe. And that's been really huge. If you have heard about our schools, they have one-way hallways, they have stickers for children to stay socially distanced. I mean, this has been no small feat. And I just would like to recognize that as a huge positive. In addition to keeping our children safe, they have done an enormous lift in terms of, as most of our teachers and our principals have referenced, relative to the instructional models. You know, when you think about what it takes to run a Lee Home Connect class for the entire school day, and as Al referenced, you know, with very little notice and time to do so. A lot of support from our curriculum department, but you know, when it came to it, it really was up to the teachers and the principals to see that across the finish line. And they have done that in an extraordinary way. So just really, really proud of that work as well. And speaking of our teachers and our principals and our support staff, the innovation that has been present in our schools is really second to none. You know, we were talking about breakout rooms and making sure that children have the enrichment as well as the intervention that they need to close those achievement gaps. And, you know, again, our curriculum and staff development departments provided extraordinary professional development, no question about it. Our teachers stepped up and took that and ran with it and made it their own. And that's goes to their hearts when it comes to, you know, the quality of their who they are as teachers. Some challenges have been mentioned, you know, things like student engagement, children, you know, leaving throughout the day. We know that does happen. And so our schools, again, are stepping up and contacting parents and trying to work with children on making sure they stay with us throughout the day. You know, closing that achievement gap. I think another opportunity has been our technical skills. I know getting ready for this school year, I had to up my game in technology, and I know that our teachers and principals and even our students and families have had to do that. So certainly those are opportunities. And as Al mentioned, you know, Lee Virtual going to become now our largest school here in the district with over 5,000 students. So that has been exponential growth, certainly for him and his team. And so we're just very thankful for the work that they've done. So, you know, one observation, and Shanna and I have talked about this a number of times, is, you know, anytime you have a challenge that arises in any sector, whether it's, you know, law or medicine or engineering or architecture, you know, you name it, education's no different. And there have been so many lessons learned from this journey, from the fourth quarter where we were primarily, you know, remote learning in Google Classrooms to now where we offer 3 different models. We do think that this is going to forever change the way we do business in education. We've given parents a lot more choices. And as our skills grow, we will continue to enhance our Lee Home Connect model. And I know Mr. Schilling is always looking at ways to continue to improve and Lee Virtual and face-to-face. You know, our teachers are on the front line making those real-time changes as we speak. So we do think it's forever changed the face of education, and we look forward to what the future brings.
Thank you, Dr. Carlin. We appreciate it. Mr. Williams, are you still with us? All right, we can see you talking, we just can't hear you. All right, we're going to go on to Ms. Fletcher, and we'll come back to Mr. Williams at the end.
All right, hi everybody, I'm Shanna Fletcher, and I have the blessing and honor to work with our elementary principals. But I'm really proud of not only our principals, but our amazing teachers, the students, and the parents, because it really is taking all of us to teach kids right now, right, as partners. And I thought it was very interesting because, you know, the week before school started, especially, there was a lot of fear. I had some fear. I know the teachers had fear when the kids were coming back, but, you know, through the eyes of a child, The first week of school, we got to as many schools as we could. Guess who had no fear? The students. They came in and they followed those safety protocols like none other. And they were wonderful. I mean, they were absolutely wonderful. And we haven't had really any major problems reported. So I guess that is a positive in our elementary schools with students following the protocols. They just ran with it and like it was nothing new. So I was really, really proud of the students. There are still a few challenges, you know, like Mr. West said, the Lee Home Connect, the planning for Lee Home Connect to keep students well engaged all day is tremendous. And the hard work that our teachers are putting in is absolutely tremendous. And then there's the, as educators, we like to control a lot, right? And so a lot of us are type A's, but there's a lot of things we just can't control, especially the students that are in Lee Home Connect and what is happening at home. And so as educators, a lot of the discussions we're having right now with teachers and principals are, what can we control and what can we not control? And the things that we cannot control, we really just have to let go and do our best and give ourselves some grace. And so that's kind of been our motto as an elementary team so far through the summer. And then the beginning of school is, let's just treat everyone with grace. This is a different time. This is a global pandemic, you guys. And let's just do the best we can and give each other grace. And that's what we're doing. Some of the positives that we've seen, like Denise said, I mean, this is changing us as educators. We are, the learning curve that we have all been on as educators is tremendous, and it's making us better. I was in a classroom last week where it was a face-to-face classroom, but there were 2 adults in the classroom, each on a computer, and they were Zooming with not only kids in their classroom, but kids in other classrooms on standards. So they were having face-to-face small groups through Zoom, if that makes sense. It was really innovative and it was awesome. And the engagement and the rigor was super high. It was really exciting to see. We've also seen, I wanted to mention to Miss, is it Yuha at J. Colin? Is that how you say your name? That we've had the idea, and actually Mrs. Quisenberry shared this with us, is that you can put kids in individual breakout rooms, like in their small groups. So not together as kids, but by themselves. So give them their independent work and put them each in their own breakout room. And then you kind of don't have to monitor. So that was an idea that we heard. But the last positive that I want to share is the safety protocols that we have in place. After the first few weeks, we kept getting calls from principals, and when we go visit, they'll say things like, we're gaining so much instructional time by the way we're doing lunches and the way that we're doing recess and so on and so forth, the way that we're conducting specials, art, music, and PE. Some schools have gained up to 30 minutes of instructional time. So of course, we're going to grab that and not let go. And so some of these things have forced us to look at processes differently and just helping us to continuously improve. So that's really all I have to say. I'm just really proud of our whole school community, parents included, that is making this happen.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fletcher. And Mr. Williams.
Hey, can you
back with us?
Can you hear me now at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Technology, gotta love it. Gotta love it. Hey, at this, from a perspective for J. Colin, some challenges we've had have been.
Mr. Williams, you have to mute one of your devices. We're getting you both ways now.
All right. All right. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Having some issues with sound on my desktop and laptop. So I was trying to do it via phone. And hopefully that's better now.
Yes.
But our biggest concern here at J. Collin English, some of the challenges have basically been with technology at some standpoint. We've had some concerns with stability of internet for some of the students. But overall, we've tried to rectify some of that with hotspots. We've had situations where Chromebooks have had to be replaced, due to bad batteries, bad chargers, just regular run-of-the-mill things. But we've, been able to push through that with it's been fairly simple for the most part. Another big challenge for us has been the mobility piece. What we ran into was after maybe 2 or 3 days, we started receiving an influx of students wanting to come back to face because what had happened was parents were doing the Lee Home Connect, but they didn't realize that they were going to have to be there all day with the child. They thought it was going to be like the fourth quarter where, the child gets up. At 11 o'clock and then does school. But then they found out, no, child needs to be on the computer regular school time and so forth. So that was the challenge moving in. And then we finally got parents on the same page with us, and it's been fairly smooth now for the most part. And then the attendance piece with our older students has been a concern. Some will come on in the morning, and then after lunch, you don't see them anymore. And then trying to get a hold of parents to get those students back in the classroom has been a challenge as well. So that's something that we're definitely working on. Some of the positives, I'm going to start right away with my staff. That's been the biggest positive with the flexibility that they've shown. Most of them, when they were selected for the Lee Home Connect, they just told me, hey, we'll do whatever you need to get done. We're flexible. We'll make it happen. When we started discussing hybrid classes, didn't get a lot of flack about that. Again, they were like, just tell us what you need. We'll make it happen. We'll get it done. So the flexibility of my staff has been huge through this whole process. And that's what has really made this thing work. Instead of griping, they just did it. Whatever needs to be done, they got it done. So that's been our biggest positive. Also, one of our positives is that it gave us an opportunity to provide for some of our families. There are a lot of families in need. And our biggest thing was for those that were face-to-face, we're telling the parents, we need you to just get them here. If you get them here in the building, we'll take care of everything else. And so by taking that added stress or that added burden off the parents, that has been huge for our school as well. So we've really tried to make sure that we provide that nurturing environment for our students and for the parents, because we wanted the students here as well. So those couple of things have been huge for us in getting through this process. It's something new. It's not anything that we've ever done before, but we're working through it. And with the cooperation of our staff and our parents and our families, we're going to make it happen and take care of the students. That's what it's all about for us here at J. Collin English.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate your time and your insight. So as an EAC committee, we're going to allow for 5 minutes of questions from our committee members to the panel. We do want to respect their time and the time for our meeting, so we are limited to 5 minutes. You can unmute yourself and ask your question to any of the panel members. I will leave the list out for you to choose. But again, we're going to take 5 minutes to have some questions.
Yes, Mr. Sherman.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to start by commending all the teachers, like everybody has said. I think as teachers, the power of adapting to any environment has been proven today than ever before. When I listen to all these teachers working in different environments, and I know Ms. Vaughn is here, and I don't know whether this will be asking too much, that when all this is done, that you find a way of commending and remunerating these teachers for the efforts, not just the work they're doing. I hope, Ms. Vaughn, that can be taken up. I don't know what power the board has and all that. But I have a question. I think it was Mr. West, the others have talked about this, about the challenges of technology. And as EDAC, diversity, the issues pertaining to the different socioeconomic levels. How are you being able to handle that? Particularly, not everybody has a computer, not everybody has an environment where there is a Wi-Fi and all that. I think you mentioned that, and other teachers can also comment. But before you even answer, I want to say, Ms. Hunter, the fear is real. That's why we wanted this. We have all gone through that. I'm glad you guys are able to share it. But back to Mr. West and everybody else. How are you dealing with the socioeconomic problems?
Thankfully, our school had a very healthy supply of the hotspots that were available. So that really did alleviate a lot of that. I know one of the issues that I am running into, and directly to the socioeconomic, is I actually have one student who there's only one phone in the family, and dad takes it to work. So I've had to get really creative and to find, like, her internet connection waffles. So sometimes I'll have to make a special check just to see if her audio connection is good. And if that means kind of vamping on what I was going to do to take advantage of her good audio connection, I'll definitely have to do that. Thankfully, all the students have district supplied Chromebooks. So again, that does a lot to alleviate. But for the kids who don't have hotspots, the lack of, like, really strong internet connections is probably the biggest challenge from a socioeconomic perspective that I've seen.
Thank you, Mr. West. Thank you, Mr. Peter. Any other questions?
Yes. Can I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Yes, this is Lubna Alam, and I would like to thank all of the administrators and teachers present today and talking about the positive and negatives of the different instructional models out there. And I would like to say that they are well appreciated for all the effort that they're putting into this. My question is really for those who are, who are in direct contact with doing the Leak Connect at home. I know you're talking about, you've shared your experiences about the positives and negatives of the model, but is there a substantial way to measure the progress of Leak Connect over, let's say, face-to-face? Is there a way to measure that quantifiably? Maybe one of the two executive directors can answer the question.
Yes, we have our progress monitoring tool, which is iReady. And so that is the main measure, the key measure that we're going to be using. And all the students take that, whether they're Lee Home Connect or face-to-face. And then also we have formative assessments. We have math exemplars and I think ELA, and they are all available online as well. So teachers can push those out to the Lee Home Connect kids as well. So that's another common standards-based indicator that we can use to ensure that all the students are learning. And if not, then those are the measures we use to then go back and figure out how to fill the gap or scaffold down so that we can teach the students exactly what they need to be able to master those standards.
So what is your observation to date? That is the Connect model superior, at par, not there yet? What is your observation?
Honestly, I'm not sure that we can say yet because we just finished the first diagnostic assessment. And so those, of course, attendance is key, like Ms. Mackia said, and some others. If they're there, we can teach them. So really our focus has, at the beginning of school, the first few weeks was just to make sure that our students were okay. And we really were checking in on their well-being and their families' well-being. because, we went through fourth quarter last year and then the whole summer. So we wanted to make sure everybody was emotionally okay. We had to check on that first before we could begin teaching them. And so it's been kind of a slow but intentional academic start. And we just finished the diagnostic, and so we'll have more information soon as the year progresses.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you, Ms.
for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Lubina. Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. All right, we have 1 minute left for this portion. If we want to have one more question get asked.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, Sean Williams, how do you, in a virtual or Lee Home Connect, deal with IEPs and identification of possible learning disabilities? And how do you promote different models of instruction to sort of encompass all of the potential disabilities that may be out there? Hopefully that's not too extreme to get into 1 minute.
So I can start, and I think Jessica Duncan, you're on the line, but one of the things from our perspective is, the IEPs are a legal document, and even more than that, they are the children's way in to learn. They are filled with goals and with strategies that we know work with our students. And so our teachers are familiar with their students' IEPs. We also, one of our teachers mentioned how teachers push into to the classrooms through Zoom. So our special education teachers have the ability to push in. Our therapies have the ability to push in to those classrooms to be able to provide those strategies. So we know that that's very important. The same would be true for our English language learners. We know that there are strategies that work, and our teachers are trained in ESOL strategies, but we also have our ELL paraprofessionals and other professionals pushing into those classrooms and providing those accommodations and those modifications as necessary. I'm going to let Jessica jump in because she's going to be much more knowledgeable than I am, but just from the principal's perspective and the teacher's perspective, that's what I'll share. Jessica?
And just to build on that with the evaluation component, even in Q4, when all students were home, we did as many pieces of those components as we could. So any adaptive scales, anything we could do with parents, those were completed. We also continue to evaluate here downtown. So in addition to evaluating students out at schools, we provide opportunities for parents to bring their children here if they have requested an evaluation or they're scheduled for an evaluation. So that's another opportunity to complete that if you're a student who is either in virtual school or on Home Connect and you can't get your evaluation at your school site.
All right, thank you, Ms. Duncan. Thank you, Ms. Dr. Carlin, and thank you, Mr. Williams, for your question. Now we've ended that section of the meeting. We're going to go ahead and invite our panel guests to leave if you'd like to. We do appreciate your time and your insight. We appreciate you volunteering. It definitely gave us a broader perspective of what is going on within our great county, letting us see some of the great things that are happening and addressing some of the concerns that may be out there. So again, I want to say thank you for volunteering your time and sharing your experiences with us.
Thank you, Q. You're rocking it, man. It's great to see it.
I appreciate it.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Good, thank you.
So if I want to, is this a closed meeting? If I want to listen in for a bit, am I allowed to?
Of course you can stay.
Yes, you can stay, Ms. Hunter, but you're not allowed to vote or make any comments. During the public comment section, if you have something that you'd like to share, that's the time when you can contribute. But we do enjoy your bright smile staying and observing.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next point on the agenda. the topics of interest for this upcoming year. So the next few weeks, you're going to receive an email asking you to complete a survey for the EDAC Committee's 2020-2021 topics of interest. I ask that you please complete the survey and provide 3 topics of interest you'd like to be discussed during our 2021 calendar year. Once all surveys are completed, we'll compile a list of the topics and discuss them at our November 9th meeting. Some examples may be district parent communication plans, student code of conduct, student enrollment, positive behavior interventions and supports, the PBIS. Any of those things, please provide your input in the surveys so we can start to create a roadmap for the things that we're going to discuss throughout this year. In addition to our November 9th meeting may be in person. We've gotten some feedback from the district attorney saying that the mandate for virtual meetings has expired, and we do have the potential option of meeting in person for the November 9th meeting. So we will keep you updated on the progress on that. And definitely we have a room reserved already. So if we do decide to move forward face-to-face, we'll be prepared. All right. And then next we have Ms. Vaughn for our board liaison update.
Thank you. Regarding the teachers and principals that just talked about their experiences, just a brief note. About a week and a half ago, I did my first observations of watching teachers in action. And that's something that's really amazing. I think it's the teachers that I saw on day one were at Estero High School, and both of the teachers had hybrid classes. And as difficult as it is for all teachers to adjust to these changes, I want to tell you that the hybrid classes are something else. And you know, I don't know that it would come under the purview of this particular committee in terms of how well students adjust to the hybrid, but it's very difficult when a teacher has 15 or 20 students sitting in her class face to face, and then has another dozen or more on the screen at the same time. It's quite the trick. The next day I went out to Pine Woods and I observed first, I wanted to go from the big kids to the little kids. A teacher who was doing a home connect with kindergarten. She was amazing, just amazing. And of course I was only there for like 45 to 50 minutes watching. So I don't know how they do later in the day, but those little kids were very, very engaged. And then I went to a classroom next door and watched face to face, and yeah, very, 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 very impressive. And it certainly is a huge learning curve for our teachers, but those hybrid models, very difficult. The other thing is talking about things from Lee County School Board, and I have the feeling that there may be 1 or 2 people that are going to bring up the issue. A week ago on Monday, there was a huge discussion, and this does come under the purview of equity and diversity regarding our recognition of various groups, and you know how many groups have a week or a month. And I'm sure a lot of you have either watched. I know at least one person here attended, and the issue came up for an LGBTQ resolution. And this is the first time that we've had Hispanic Month and African American History Month and so on and so forth. But this was the first time ever. And it generated, I think, close to an hour worth of discussion just on our resolutions among the board members. And in the end, there was a consensus. Now, you can't, at a board workshop, you don't vote, but you can take consensus. And the consensus was, we had probably, I don't even remember, maybe 10 different resolutions, and that there were too many, but the idea was let's only do Hispanic, and we did bullying for the 2 resolutions. The next night, Tuesday, 6 days ago, it was quite an interesting board meeting in terms of, I'll call it discussion, public comment. And it was, unfortunately, I was sick last week with, not COVID, thank God, with a stomach bug. And so I was just on the phone, but I could hear everything that was going on. And I just wanted to say that one thing is, as a board member, I have immediately reached out to Dr. Atkins, and as a matter of fact, had my weekly phone meeting with him and emphasized very, very strongly that we cannot tolerate the kind of, I understand from a couple individuals that I spoke with that some people felt somewhat intimidated because one of the groups came, and actually we had anti-mask people and LGBTQ opposition people, and some of them actually spoke on both of those. And that, it just, as a board member, I'm embarrassed that it ever happened, that we had people who came to do public comment and felt intimidated or felt not, I can't even think of the word that I want to use, but put down by our lack of putting forth that resolution. As you know, the board is not one person or 2 people, it's the entire board. With this being an election year and this being Lee County, there are always going to be things that people object to. But frankly, and this is from me as an individual, not as a board opinion, but frankly, I think the fact that we had it on the agenda and then it was pulled less than 24 hours or around 24 hours before the meeting sent an even worse message. So you guys, it's a citizens advisory group, and it's not my place to tell you what you should do, what you should discuss. But this certainly was a hot button topic, and I really regret the way it turned out. So that's, I could say a whole lot more, but I'd get myself in trouble. So I'm not going to say anything else. But I suspect most of you know at least some of the things that went on. And I guarantee we're not going to have that kind of nonsense in the future.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vaughn. We do appreciate the update and your insight. If you're just joining us, make sure you sign in on the guest sign-in sheet that's located in the chat box. And if you're just joining us as a guest to EDAC meeting tonight, please use the Google sheet that's in the chat box to sign in with us tonight. All right, next we're going to move on to our update from the staff liaison, Mr. Edie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say thank you to the staff members who were able to participate in tonight's discussion. Much like Board Member Vaughn, myself and Crystal, we did get an opportunity to go out and see the reopening and the instructional models on several of our campuses from the vantage point of our kids being dropped off in the morning and dismissal in the afternoon, as well as lunch. So we did elementary, middle, and high school. And it is really admirable to see the level of pivoting and adjustment that has had to be made on our campuses to make sure our kids are safe, but also that there is no lapse in learning that we cannot try to avoid and try to mitigate for. So a lot of the issues that were discussed tonight, having systems in place to support and giving interventions as necessary and scaffolding related to achievement gap are definitely parts of conversation that are continuing. But thank you to the staff who participated tonight. And that's all we have for now from our side.
All right, thank you, Mr. Edie. So next we have good of the order. I do want to make mention that it is currently 6:54. We did make a stop time of 7:30 when we could, 7 when we could, potentially pushing to 7:30 if we had to. So as we proceed, let's do keep that in mind as we honor each other's time. Do we have any statements for good of the order?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Vaughn, I just want to allude to what you said, and I like your frankness in all this matter. Sometimes perception becomes everything. And after that board meeting, there's a perception, or there came out a perception, it may not have been Leo, but the board was not so much in support of a particular group of students, this time LGBTQ. And that is wrong. From EDAC's point of view, every child needs respect. It doesn't matter what, and every family, everybody we are serving is equal. And I would like to make it very clear from EDAC's point of view. It might just be a perception, but I do hope that that can be corrected so that any child, whether regardless of whatever diversity, must feel respected and treated equally. Education is important, it should be respected, and people should be taught, and people need to understand. Thank you so much for being so open. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Anyone else for good of the order?
May I? Ann Reed.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I just want to point out that I wanted to watch the workshop on Monday afternoon where the resolutions were discussed. I would encourage other members of the EDAC committee to do so. Right about 1 hour, 49 minutes is when the discussion begins. One of the things that I would love to see come out of this is training for our board members.
Yes.
One great resource that we could use is GLSEN. They provide resources for schools, for students, and I can say that the students are watching. I know that Equality Florida came in last year and offered training for administrators and for teachers. I commend those that participated. I did have a conversation with a board member who expressed concern that Equality Florida was a political entity. And so that's why I brought up GLSEN instead. I feel like the wording that we saw just during that workshop showed that we have board members that need some type of training or some type of education so that they understand not just the needs of the LGBT students, but just a little bit about the LGBT community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Ms. Siskon, I see you raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to say thank you, Betsy, for bringing that up and just addressing it. And I also, like Ms. Reed, watched the workshop, and a couple of things became very apparent to me. The very first, when they had all of these resolutions, the first thing Betsy said as chair of the EDAC committee was, if you do this and you only exclude the LGBTQ community, you're going to send a very bad message. Then as the workshop progressed, Debbie Jordan, who was our liaison last year, also trained through EDAC, said, listen, if you do this, this is very bad. And then the chair of the school board, who goes to these equality meetings because it's, you know, mandated, also said, this is not a good idea. So the three school board members that we as a committee have educated said this was a bad idea, but it still happened before coming to the EDAC committee for discussion. So I agree with Ms. Reed. I feel that there immediately, from a public relations standpoint, there needs to be a sensitivity training, and that needs to be addressed right away, because I do not feel the members in the workshops language was good. I feel that this message has sent a very negative message to our children in the school, and to fix that, we need to address that. And the next thing I really want to mention is this resolution committee. I feel the resolution committee would bring resolutions to us before the school board would vote on it. And I would really like to support the possibility of the resolution committee bringing things before EDAC, before the public gets involved and we have something like this happen.
Ms. Siskon.
Thank you.
Is there knowledge of a resolution committee that we're unaware of? I'm not sure there's a resolution committee.
They were talking about these resolutions that the resolutions that we had, correct? Like there were 20 of them. And then they said they were only going to exclude the LGBTQ community. And 3 of the board members said, we need to involve EDAC in this decision. But instead of that resolution coming to us, it went to this workshop and created this bigger issue of this hate group getting involved and everything that happened after it. So we as a community feel the need for sensitivity training and acknowledgement that this is very exclusionary to a minority community. We are a minority community and we have been excluded. And then we were bullied at the school board during bullying month. And I thank you for recognizing that. And I hope that in the future, we would have a safe space for all to express our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Siskon. Are there any further comments for good of the order?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, if I may.
Ms. Lubna, I think Ms. Lubna, Mr. Williams had his hand up, and then we'll come to you.
Okay.
Mr. Williams?
I just want to echo Ms. Siskon and Ms. Reed's concerns regarding the workshop. We really need our board members to be educated about LGBT issues. They came off as very uneducated surrounding the matters. A lot of it turned to sexuality and what the education would be. During Black History Month, we don't teach sex between Black people. During Hispanic Month, we don't teach sex between Hispanic folks. But they seem to think that just because it's LGBTQ, that all of the conversation would gravitate around sex. And I think that that is completely short-sighted and offensive, to be honest with you, because that is just like being Black or Hispanic. That is only one portion of our identities. And we really need to educate the school board members, and whether it's Equality Florida or GLSEN or someone else that comes in, and maybe even require that they come through our EDAC meetings, for goodness sakes. They need some form of sensitivity training on this matter. Also, I would say that when they're speaking about these resolutions and they're comparing, okay, well, Black and Hispanic are heritages, whereas LGBT doesn't get the same recognition. We just passed a non-discrimination policy through the board that included sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. So we are being discriminated at our board meetings and through resolution. And I think that that is terrible. And it's a terrible precedent. And we need to correct, I hope that they correct the record at the next board meeting or workshop. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, Ms. Lubna.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I had a question about the diversity question that is sent out in the parent engagement survey, and the text was emailed to us by Ms. Carroll. And the question, you know, I just had maybe Mr. Eady can answer my question. Is there a follow-up to this question? So it's a very broad question. And it says, when I engage with my child's school, I feel people of all cultures and backgrounds are respected and valued. Strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. My question is there a way to follow up on the responses to this question? What is the follow-up to this?
Am I on mute? Okay. I can't answer that one specifically as well as we could from communications department. So I can tell you that the question was more in line with the engagement survey that went out at the close of this academic year. I believe at the bottom of the survey, there might be an opportunity to provide additional comments, considering the fact that the committee voted on Monday of that week, and the engagement survey went out, I believe, on Wednesday. So at that time, we wanted to make sure as an initial entryway point, there was a question there. But as we go forward, if that's another conversation point that the committee would like to continue for this year, some additional suggestions as follow-up questions, and I know Mr. Malloy will be very willing to hear that and offer as an additional talking point for the follow-up. So as a short version, that was the question, to make sure we got at least one in to start as an entryway point, but knowing that we would have additional thoughts and perspectives as we fleshed it out further.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eady. I just wanted to know what we're doing with the responses that we're getting.
Yes, ma'am. And I will follow up with Mr. Malloy. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity as you all decide your issues and topic items. But when he joins us at the next meeting, he's traditionally here. But I want to make sure I don't want to misspeak, because I'm not exactly sure what that process looks like in the communications department.
Thank you, Mr. Eady.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eady. Thank you, Ms. Lubna. All right, any other questions for good of the order? All right, so we're going to move on to public comment. I do want to remind the guests that each comment will have a maximum of 3 minutes. The public comment section portion of the meeting will be limited, 2 minutes. The public comment section portion of the meeting will be limited to no more than 1 hour. If more than 20 comments are received, time per comment will reduce to 2 minutes. If more than 30 comments are received, time per comment will be reduced to 1 minute. Our recording secretary will read any public comment emails that were received prior to this meeting. We will also check the sign-in sheet for public comment request. Ms. Carroll, do you have any public comments that were received email?
Yes, I do.
All right. I will keep the timer for you. When you're ready.
First comment is from Nancy Moore of Fort Myers, Florida. To the members of the Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, I am writing to express my deep disappointment in the school board's decision last week to remove from its agenda a resolution recognizing October as LGBT History Month. This dismissal was especially disappointing in the wake of the school board's approval of a new bullying and harassment policy, which was a significant positive step. As Ms. Gittens points out in her excellent guest column in this Sunday's News Press, in order to combat bullying in the schools, we must foster a feeling of inclusion. All children should feel included, whether Black or white or brown, male or female, Hispanic or non-Hispanic, gay or straight or transgender or so forth. One way to help students feel included is for them to be exposed to the stories of people like themselves. For LGBT students or those with LGBT parents, this means hearing stories of famous LGBTs in science, arts, etc., and the stories of those who fought for equal rights, such as Harvey Milk. As a retired clinical psychologist, I could tell you many true stories of children who felt excluded because of their parents were LGBT. Stories that included, as a result, substance abuse, self-mutilation, and suicide attempts. Despite my disappointment in the school board's dismissal of this important resolution last week, I believe in the motto, if at first you don't succeed, I hope a resolution recognizing LGBT History Month in Lee County Schools is recognized in the months ahead. I hope and trust that this committee will offer important leadership on this issue. Your LGBT students, staff, and citizens, and our allies are counting on you. Next public comment from Russ Wright. To the members of the Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, I am writing to express my deep disappointment in the school board's decision last week to remove from its agenda a resolution recognizing October as LGBT History Month. This dismissal was especially disappointing in the wake of the school board's approval of a new bullying and harassment policy, which was a significant positive step. Why do I connect the two? Because according to the National PTA, negative attitudes toward lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender students puts them at an increased risk for violence and bullying, and also impact a student's ability to learn. Those negative attitudes also make them more likely to suffer from depression and attempt suicide. Simply put, we should do anything we can as a society to counter those negative attitudes and demonstrate to LGBT students that they are not alone and they are valued. Recognizing LGBT History Month and allowing teachers to include in their lesson plans important developments in LGBT history and the important contributions of LGBT Americans in many academic fields will be a giant step in the right direction. Despite my disappointment in the school board's dismissal of this important resolution last week, I believe in the motto, if at first you don't succeed, I hope a resolution recognizing LGBT History Month in Lee County Schools is considered in the months ahead. I hope and trust that this committee will offer important leadership on this issue. Public comment from Timothy Dews. To the members of the Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, I am deeply appalled by Tuesday's school board meeting and its decision to remove the LGBT History Month October resolution from consideration. After disappointing display of audience members, mostly the ACT members, who disrespected the board and everyone who attended. It was especially annoying in the light of the board's approval of the bullying and harassment policy, which we all believe was a great move forward. Why is this important? I am a 68-year-old gay man, widowed recently after a 45-year relationship, who spent most of my life in a fear of abuse, bullying, harassment, and discrimination in schools and the workplace. That behavior can have a lasting impact on individuals, causing depression and long-term accepting issues for later life. It is so important to build positive self-images early in young lives so they feel valued and become key members of society. It is so important to recognize the history of LGBT individuals, some who have made important strides for the country and its citizens. They should have models to look up to. I know that's tough because I didn't have them in my life. I felt devastated many times after being bullied for my choices, which I had no control over. It is absolutely frustrating that the board didn't face this issue with strength and confidence. It isn't easy, but I know some individuals have reservations. I will hope the school board will consider the LGBT History Month resolution in the next section. I will hope this committee supports the resolution in the future. Regards, Tim Dews. Next public comment from Willie Middleton. To the members of the Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, I am writing to voice that I'm very disappointed and unhappy. The school boards decided on October 6, 2020 to dismiss approving LGBT History Month. You allowed a group of bullies to rule your decision. Shame on you. Supporting LGBT History Month will help to educate our kids to see the great accomplishment of LGBTQ people, just as Black History Month has opened the hearts and minds of closed-minded people to see the accomplishments of Black people. LGBT History Month will help LGBT students and other students to see their value and self-worth, thereby building a more positive attitude. It is time for Lee County to change its image. Hopefully, Lee County school system will help lead the way. Many towns never attract new business because they are not open to diversity. In this day and time, corporations look for diversity in cities with which to build their business. Even though I was disappointed in our school board dismissal of the LGBT History Month resolution, I feel they can come back and reconsider this resolution. Sincerely, Willie Middleton. That concludes the public comments via email.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. Okay, so we're going to now take public comment from our guests that have joined us. Do we have any guests that are with us that would like to make a public comment? Please state your name.
Mr. Chairman, you have two who signed in with public comment, Abby Reed and Jason Beckman.
Ms. Reed, since your name was read first, we're going to have you speak first. Ms. Abby Reed, please state your name and why you're here, and I will start the timer. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Reed. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am an LGBTQ student, and I thought it was important that I share my experience with you guys. So I am an alumni of Estero High School. I graduated last year, and now I'm a current student at USF. I'm also a Point Scholar, which means that I have been nationally recognized for my work within the LGBTQ community, and I received a scholarship from it from Point Foundation. So I wanted to just touch on what happened on Monday and Tuesday. So as a past student within the Lee County School District, I was absolutely shocked that this was something that had happened. I thought we were really moving in a direction that was more accepting, especially after working with my high school to be more accepting and tolerant. If I was a student when this happened, I would have felt absolutely cast aside and devastated, knowing that these are the attitudes that were put forth by both our school board members and community members. And I think it's important that we recognize that LGBT History Month is just more than a holiday or a random month. It's about recognizing the identities of your students and understanding that those identities are valid. And I'm sure many of you agree with that. I also wanted to touch on the work that I will be doing within the community. So with Point Foundation, we conduct a community service project, and in light of recent events, I will be doing this project within Lee County. It is called the Rainbow Student Coalition, and I will be working with LGBTQ students within Lee County to give them a voice through a digital platform. And this digital platform will be available for both teachers and advisors. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to message me, and I will put my email in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. You timed that perfectly. All right, Mr. Was it Beckman? All right, Mr. Beckman.
Thank you very much for letting me join for the meeting tonight. My name is Jason Beckman. I'm a board member with Southwest Florida Pride. Here in Lee County, we plan the annual LGBTQ Pride Festival. I want to thank school board member Vaughn for her support, and I do echo the sentiment she shared a bit ago that everything that happened last week related to the LGBT History Month resolution can definitely be summarized as regretful. I have to admit, it was pretty difficult to be in the board meeting on Tuesday evening and hear some of the statements and the words that some parents and other members of the community said during their public comment to oppose the LGBT History Month resolution or attack LGBT people. And I think kind of one of my big reflections coming out of that is, it left me wondering, are there LGBT students, faculty, and parents and families in the school district that aren't sure now if, the school board, supports them? it was a mess. It was a circus, a lot of homophobia and hateful comments. And I'm glad that we did have some folks who attended that were, just came out in solidarity to show support for the LGBT youth in the schools and their families and the teachers as well. But I know that school board member Fisher did try to give some clarification at the end of all the public comment to just explain the History Month resolution was really just kind of to celebrate the achievements we've made addressing anti-LGBT bullying, but I felt like it was kind of inadequate that it didn't, there was no statement that said, what happened here is not right. We do support our LGBT students, faculty, and teachers. And I don't know what that looks like going forward, if even a statement from the school district or the school board could be made just so that these folks know that they are seen, that they are valued, because so often LGBT youth in particular can feel invisible because our history and our community are not really taught about during school. And that sends a message, and it sends a message as well to their peers who are straight that may be left thinking, well, I didn't learn anything about the LGBT civil rights movement in school, or we didn't learn about LGBT equality, so that must mean LGBT people don't have worth and value. Those are just a few kind of reflections for me. I think the meeting itself has been well documented how kind of wild and unruly it was, and I'm looking forward to hopefully it being better in the future.
Cut you off, but your 2 minutes are up. Thank you for your insight, and thank you for your coming in and sharing your feelings on the matter. We do appreciate it. Are there any other public comments? Okay. If we do not have any other public comments, I do want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Oh, sorry, Ms. Duncan, you had something that you wanted to share?
I do. Thank you. Thank you for all the comments that you shared. Abby, thank you for sharing your contact information. I'll be reaching out to you. I do know that we have people motivated to create change, and like Jason said, what that looks like are going forward. But opportunities like Abby, like you with the project you're working on, provide that. Chuck Bradley is over our equity department, but I wanted to share with you a couple things before we leave tonight. Many of you know the posters that were being worked on, and those did get sent out to the school. So those, you've seen those in the mock form online. So those did go out to the schools. In addition to that, you should be seeing these on campus, which are the safe space stickers. And these can go anywhere on the wall. And then we started about, I think Mr. Edie's here, and we started working with Mr. Edie about a month ago, and just received word that another thing we're working on has come in. So I wanted to share that with the group. You're actually going to be one of the first to see it, as it just came in late last week, but I'm going to share my screen and show you a window cling that we have been working on. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we will be starting production on that as well. And just a reminder, as we're moving forward, some changes that this group has really worked for and promoted are the changes to, we have changes to our non-discrimination policy, and also the poster is in our code of conduct, and that is the first time that has happened. So the Equality Florida that poster is part of our code of conduct as well.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for sharing your comments tonight as a way to help guide our school community as we move forward.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple things and ask the committee something. Ms. Duncan, did you just say Equality Florida, by the way? That you're working with? Okay, yes. and that was the group that was villainized somewhat, and I didn't see it. I mean, I didn't understand why it was, and I thought perhaps so the district has had a relationship with that group, in terms of education.
Mhm.
Okay. Two things. You have to also understand that as board members, we got a lot of emails, anti-LGBTQ resolution ahead of even our workshop meeting. And one of the major misunderstandings was we got a lot of people saying, where is that curriculum? How come that people misunderstood, because in the resolution there was the word educate, and they didn't see it as educate in terms of what has just been mentioned here this evening, but they had an idea that it was going to be a particular curriculum, and this is something private for, and anyway, there's a lot we can do with that. I have taken notes on all of this, and as a board member, we have a time that we report to the board on the various committees that we are liaisons to. And what I'm wondering from the committee is there a statement that everybody can, I'll generalize, but Mr. Quisenberry, is there, with your permission or your direction rather, I'm wondering if there is a statement that EDAC wants to make, because those things, when it's from the Citizens Committee, they do hold weight. So that would be my question to the group.
So from the hands that are being raised, it seems like, and there has been some comments that were shared in support of this movement. Being that we are the Equity and Diversity Committee, I think that it would be well within our purview that we would support any initiative that has the benefit of all people, all students, faculty, family members of our county to be accepted and to be celebrated. I think that's something that should almost go without saying for our committee, because it is who we are. And I think that our committee is made up of a diverse group of people that is a slice of Lee County. And I think if there's any group that represents this county in a way that is positive and moving forward, it is EDAC. So I would.
I totally agree. And I have enough notes where I can kind of touch on, kind of summarize myself some of the comments that were made. But what I'm asking is this something that the committee would like me next board workshop, which is in a week, to actually say they came forth and formally made a recommendation? Or shall I just, it's your committee, so I will summarize some of these things, but it's up to you if you want to vote as a committee and say, this is what we wish. So
Mr. Chairman.
So I would suggest that we would have to have a motion to move forward with something like that.
Mr. Chairman. Yep. The motion. Okay.
Hold on, Mr. Peter. Ms. Martha's been raising her hand. Did you have a comment?
Ecstatically.
I am flagging my way into this. Betsy, here's how I look at this. I don't care if you're black, white, pink, purple, if you like women, men, or all of them. I don't care if you have antlers on your head. A school building is someplace where we should not be bullied, where we should not feel unsafe. I apologize that I was not at the meeting where all of this took place. Obviously I needed to be. I may have gotten into trouble though. I don't quite understand what the problem is here with ensuring the staff, the faculty, the students, the parents, the visitors, that when they are on a campus of the Lee County School Board, that they're not going to be bullied for their as long as it's not harming someone else, their personal lifestyle choices. I don't care what you believe in personally. All of us here on this screen, we are all representing our communities as a whole on this committee. And I've been sitting here for the last hour. Why do we even have to worry about this? Why? It drives me up a tree. So I don't know what it is, Betsy, that you're looking for from the committee, because it should be a given that absolutely, Mr. Chair, we wholeheartedly support anything that's going to keep all of those aforementioned groups safe and unbullied and comfortable in any public school building or property. Or I'm just blown away by this entire discussion. I really am, unless I'm off point, and then I'm just going to shut up. But wow.
All right, thank you, Ms. Marth. Mr. Peter, you had a comment?
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to sum it up very well. But for Betsy, I just wanted to say that as in form of a motion that we trust, or I don't know how to put the right wording for that, that the notes you have taken are a part of what we're discussing EDAC. Anybody can see it. This is recorded. That's what we approve. You take it there, including the things that Ms. Duncan talked about that she presented to us and the organization she's working with. All those things should be presented to the board, and we need them to realize that the perception is wrong, and we must always respect every single child, every single parent, everybody in this context. So we trust you present the points that you have had. We don't need to edit it in any other way. That's my motion.
I will second that motion. Sean
Thank you.
Good. All right. So, Mr. Peter, you gave us some good information. Are you making an official motion, or are you just supporting
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn can articulate what we've said here tonight?
No, I am making it official, Mr. Chairman. I'm making it official that this committee trusts the points that were recorded here, that they are the views of this committee, including what Ms. Duncan brought forward. It should be presented to the board in that context.
Crystal, raise
I
your
don't
hand
understand
in
the
the
motion.
chat. I'm sorry, Crystal, also raise your hand in the chat before you proceed.
Hold on one second. Mr. Peter, if you could type that in the chat box so that we have exactly what you're trying to portray.
I can do that very comfortably, yes.
Yeah, while you're typing, we're gonna take Ms. Crystal's comment. Ms. Tiscon?
I have a procedure question. Can we make an official motion that the EDAC committee formally stands behind the LGBTQ committee and ask the board to watch our feelings in here? It's recorded, correct? And Betsy, Betsy can point them to this meeting, and they will have all of our public comments and everything in one place, correct? Or are we talking about making a formal statement as the EDAC committee about what happened? I'm confused.
It sounds like we are making a formal statement to support the moving forward of this resolution.
Then I second it, yes.
Mhm.
Sean already did.
I third it.
I fourth it.
I just want to make a point of clarification that
Thank you.
Equality Florida is not a political organization. They have just like all professional organizations, they have a political action committee that is separate and distinct from that not-for-profit organization, and they keep those separate, as they must as a not-for-profit 501c3. And the fact that we're even convoluting that shows how uneducated that some of our members and public are about the organization to begin with. They have come into our schools and they give yes, they promote equality and equity through all of the inclusive language for LGBTQ plus. And they do move forward that movement. but that is not political. That's human. I mean, it's human dignity and respect. And for them to say that they're a political organization because they're saying, it would be like calling the NAACP a political organization. And it's just unqualified wrong.
And for point of correction, I would like to state on record that LGBTQ is not a lifestyle choice. Thank you. You are born this way.
Okay. Ms. Tucker, you have a question or a comment?
I had a question. Do we know if there's any clubs for the LBGT committee? Because my old school, I was the head of a club, and that's kind of hypocritical, if you so to speak. And we're kind of saying you can have a club, but you can't have a month to celebrate it. So Ms. Vaughn, if you can bring that back to the board to say, we can give you a club, but we can't give you a month to celebrate. So it's kind of like we're gonna hide you in a club where we kind of, I don't know if you charge for the club, make money off of it. Okay, it's free, okay. But we're not gonna.
Ms. Tucker, I'm gonna chime in for a second. I'm actually the district contact for our GSAs within the district, which I can tell you has multiplied since I've been in this position. Can you hear me?
You're kind of staticky.
Can you hear me now?
You're staticky.
Let me switch your computer.
Yeah, just to the interesting thing the day after the school board meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, one of my, I was just saying.
What I was saying.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms. Vaughn.
I was just saying to answer the question, Ms. Tucker's question real fast, and I know you're going to elaborate, that the day after the school board meeting, one of my good friends, I used to teach at Estero, from Estero, said, I am the Gay Straight Alliance sponsor. And some of my kids came to me today saying, well, we heard this about the school board and what's going on. And I actually saw her this weekend and we had a chat about what happened. But yes, we do have the clubs.
Okay.
Ms. Tucker, I wanted to update you. I actually oversee the GSAs for the district now, and our numbers have actually increased in both middle school and high school. We have more GSA advisors reaching out on a basis now since we started our training.
Okay.
So I keep in contact. I actually have a GSA advisor Google Classroom, as well as having Equality Florida coming in to train our GSA advisors as well. So, and we do provide training for our equity coordinators. I'm a part of that training for understanding sexual orientation and gender expression.
You have two going on. You have two computers going on.
But does the board know that the GSA is not just kids who are home, I hate to say that word, but the kids that are, it's straight kids that are in the club as well? Does the board know that?
Well, I don't know.
I can only speak for myself. Yes, I know. That's why it's called Gay Straight. But and it's to support. It's
okay.
To support
to support it, right. I'm just concerned because the board might think when they think GSA or what have you is they're going back in the old days where it's like, okay, if you're in that club, you might become gay. You're really not.
Some of the parents think that.
Yeah, they think that, but it's not true.
Getting indoctrinated. But I'm looking at the time, and I've heard some. I appreciate what Peter said. Honestly, I would rather have. It's your committee. I'll do it either way. I can bring back notes, or I can add notes to if you have something specific to say, because you're an advisory committee, and that's a function. So
yeah,
Ms. Vaughn, I have a
this is
suggestion.
how you do that.
It's actually a suggestion for the committee. I'm hearing so far, what I would suggest for the committee members. Can we vote that we would basically give permission to Ms. Vaughn to represent the things that we talked about tonight? Give her our vote of confidence that she can represent our feelings and the ideas we shared tonight, that she can convey those to the rest of the board.
and that's what I put down, Mr. Chairman. I don't know whether it came out clearly in the chat room. You asked me to do that in form of a motion. Can you see it?
I think that I think we can do a vote of confidence in Ms. Vaughn, and we can proceed that way.
Can we vote on that?
Yes.
Let's vote on it.
All right. Do we have a second for the vote?
Second.
Second. All right. So all in favor of a vote of confidence for Ms. Vaughn?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The vote is carried. Ms. Vaughn, we're going to leave this in your capable hands to represent us at the board. We know you have it taken care of.
I don't know whether that vote takes care of what I had mentioned there. If you look at the chat room, what you asked me, but which I think it does. I think
it does too, Mr. Peter. So I do appreciate everyone's contributions tonight. I think we had some good conversations. It is very exciting to know that we are all still on the same page, even though from the outside there may be some different opinions, but as an EDAC committee, I'm glad we are still working together. We are supporting each other in this endeavor as we move forward with the county. So, until we meet next month, please be safe out there. Enjoy life, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
Yes.
Is there a second?
John Williams, second.
John Williams, second. Thank you very much. You guys have a great night.
All right, you too.
Thank you, everybody.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion's carried.